Guys, guess what? I pulled this out of the garbage the other day. 2 days ago, and I managed to get it on the truck, in the back of my truck last night, and brought it home. And it's a W.F. Wells and Sons Incorporated, Three Rivers, Michigan. It's a bandsaw. It's we call it a horizontal bandsaw. It's for cutting stuff. Tied it up so I can get it on. Get it on the truck last night. I got flipping open on me. So, oh, must be no. That's I'm grabbing the wrong thing. There we go. So you can use it to cut heavy metal, and it looks to me like everything works. It's well made. There's a switch. On, off. It's like a light switch. I've never seen a switch like that. I got my knife out. I'm going to cut these wires. Somebody cut the wire right off of it. I'm going to cut this back, and we're going to hook up a... I got this out of the garbage there about a month ago. So convenient. It's already wired up. So we'll use that. Give it a little test. Alright, so there we go. I got it wired up. I taped up the hot wire. I didn't bother taping up these two. I'm going to pull it apart as soon as I get it, as soon as I'm done this little tester. So I've got it in the off position right now. And let's go plug it in, see if it works. Maybe it'll catch fire. Works fine. The belt is loose. Or it's broken. I'll look at that. Motor runs. Okay, I tightened up the belt. There's a ring on the drive wheel for the blade. I haven't found anything there yet that I pulled out of the garbage that doesn't work. I pulled a vacuum motor, just the motor itself, out of the garbage last week, I think it was, or 2 weeks ago. And because my motor blew up on my little shop vac, so I got to change that. So that's the belt that was loose. So I just loosened up this bolt on the back here. And turn the motor a little bit, and it seems to work. Looks like something's missing right here. It's probably a stopper. That's a hole that goes right through. Yeah. So there's probably a stopper if you're doing repetitive cuts. Everything else seems to be here. All the little wheels. They're a little stiff, but they're all turning. These three are turning. I haven't checked these. Three little bearings. They seem to be okay. You know, except for a good scrubbing and a cleaning up, I don't think this needs very much. So there's the model number. I wonder what year. This is probably 30-40 years old, I'm guessing. I haven't seen machines made like this in a long time. It's got the coolant pump. The name. You don't see chrome letters put on equipment today. It's just a sticker. Not even, they don't even put a metal plate like that for the model number. They all just put a sticker, riveted on metal plate. There's a coolant pump. It plugs in here, so I assume that when I turn the switch on, that powers up that plug. So I could put probably a light or something maybe on it. There's a second outlet there, and the hose for the coolant pump, everything's there. Everything. That's been modified, it looks like. Probably the original hose cracking. Even the little gas shock seems to work. You lift it up, it comes down nice and slow. Not there. Iffy. That's a little iffy. When's the last time you think that was cleaned out? So that's coolant that's the water has evaporated out and it's turned into a sludge, and got insects and crumbs from people's cookies, and I don't know. That just drops on right here, slips underneath that edge, drops on top of these little metal things, that little edge there, and all the coolant runs down in this main tray, flows down to this end over the edge and into that main tray with the pump. So kind of cool. Great addition to the shop. I have a little saw right now. It's a cheap Chinese saw, and it's got a few little things wrong with it, but not much. It doesn't have a coolant tray or a pump. So this will be fantastic. We'll give it a good scrubbing up, cleaning up. I'm not going to paint it or anything. It's just going to stay like it is. Wheels are a little cracked on it. That's why I'm assuming this has got to be 40, 50 years old. It looks like it was sitting in the same spot for the first 10 years of its life, and then the second 10 years or 20 years of its life was sitting over here because it's all cracked in two spots. Got a bit of a flat spot there. This wheel's probably the same. Yeah. Anyway, I'm not even going to change the wheels on it. Just going to use it. We'll get a blade. Got to find out what length that blade is. Run a measuring tape around or something. I don't see any numbers for the blade length. So you can't beat the price when you get something that's been thrown in the garbage. Like everything there that I find if I find anything in the garbage, it's usually they just thrown it out. There's nothing wrong with it. And anything with a grease fitting, I don't think it's ever been greased since it left the factory. So I squirt a little oil, a little grease in, and it frees it up and works fine usually. There's the cover for the belt. Yeah, I'm happy with that. It's got a really fantastic handle here. There's your blade tightening. I haven't opened this up yet. It's funny there's no knobs on there. It seems to spin nice. That bearing doesn't have anything. No wear. I don't think this has been used very much. It's got metal all in here, all bits of metal. Look at this. I didn't measure this, but that's got to be 1 inch by. It's got to be 1 by 2 solid steel. These are cast iron, heavy. Aluminum down here. Looks like could be 3/8. You know, they went crazy when they built this. They were thinking of, you know, if manufacturers thought about people using these tools for a lifetime when they were made. Now they're just made as cheap as possible, and they do wear out, they do break. I'm happy with this. They won't budge. I don't think that's been adjusted. Oh, turn that off. I don't think this thing has been adjusted. These are the width of your cut. Probably hasn't been adjusted since the day. Well, it's been adjusted because the paint's missing all over here, so it has. Probably sat in a room for the last 10 or 15 years not being used, and they just said, well, enough of that, let's just make some space, get rid of it. I don't know, I'm guessing. Why would they throw this out? Baffles me, boggles the mind. But you know, you can tell this is a good quality tool. It's got a steel frame. It doesn't have a cast iron frame, which is probably the more desirable model, is complete cast iron, but steel to me is just as good if it's made right. And other than a good cleanup, you know, someone once said you can feel the pain once, or you can feel the pain every time you use a power tool. So I've been feeling the pain every time I use that little Chinese saw. It works, but it doesn't have a lot of power, and
the fan blades are all missing on the motor, so the motor gets really hot if it runs for a big cut. Like when I cut some pretty solid steel there, 1 inch thick by 3-4 inches, and it didn't struggle to get through it, but it did get really, really hot, and it took a long time. So, but you can walk away from these saws here. You just turn them on, walk away, periodically check on it, make sure it's not doing something wacky. It's great. Fantastic addition to the shop, and any machinist, steel fabricator, welder, any guy should have one of these. For years, all I had was an abrasive wheel chop saw. I have 2 of them. They throw sparks, or noisy. You got to sit there with your hand on it and push the whole time you're cutting. And when you get up to the big stuff, 1 inch thick or thicker, you're cutting something 2 by 2 inch. You can't get through it. Okay, one last thing I thought I would make note of and show you guys is the fine adjust for the blade guides. I don't think I've seen a saw with that type of... There's 2 ears here that hold this machine to... It's like a threaded rod, but it's machined to stay between these 2. Fine thread is cut into the face of this, the table. I don't know what you call it, like a table for the guides. You probably have to loosen those 2 screws. And you can adjust this to right down to like... Okay guys, I got these bearings here soaking in a little tub of oil, and I got the other set. I've unbolted them off here, and they're soaking in oil. But I've costed out the new bearings, and I think they're around 20 bucks a bearing, tax included. So for 120 bucks I can have all brand new bearings. Now I took these wheels off, the 2 drive wheels, this one over here and the idler wheel, and I checked those bearings. They're iffy. I don't like the feeling of those. I can't tell if there's 2 bearings in there or if it's 1 double bearing. Seems like 2 separate bearings, but doesn't matter. If I have to go ahead and put all new bearings, I'm going to try it like it is, the way it is, with what I've got. And if it runs nice and works good, which I think it will, I'm going to eventually change all the bearings. But I got out the big book of solutions. Now, my first thought was to cut, I mentioned earlier in the video, cut, and shorten this by 1 3/8 and re-weld it back together. And then I've got another issue here with the wheel size here. There's only a small little machine. I can machine it bigger. There's only a little bit of surface here. It's designed for a 1/2 inch blade, and I've got a 3/4 inch right here that I bought, and it's too big to fit on there. So this is an 035 3/4. This is the kind of blade I would really like to put on this saw, but it doesn't come in the right length. And the only blade that does come in the right length is this one right here. I flipped through here. The best way to solve this problem with this saw is to buy the right blade, right? So, and I didn't think I could get it anymore. 7 foot 10 inch and a half. So that's 94 and a half, which is what I need. A 93 and a half, 93 3/4 should fit on here, but 1 inch longer, the wheel will be centered pretty well. So they do still make the blade for it. And 1/2 by 025, which is a thinner blade, smaller, both dimensions. Okay, so I brought my little needle back with the grease zert on the end, and I've found a drill bit, the smallest drill bit I've got here. I couldn't even tell you what size it is. And I've got it in the chuck of the drill cordless DeWalt 14.4 volt. And what we're going to do is try and go over there and drill. And then I'm going to stuff, I got a couple ideas, maybe a piece of plastic with some paper towel behind it, and we're going to squirt some oil on that bearing, leave it soak overnight, try and get it to run in there, soften up that grease, and then tomorrow grease it. Okay, so now we're at the, this is the wheel off the WS Wells. And because this is metal shielded right here, that needle will not go through anywhere. I can't even like try and get it shoved through the crack here. I pried with a screwdriver, a little tiny screwdriver, just try and get enough space to get in there, and no way. And I am still not sure. The parts list I have doesn't indicate whether this is, I believe it's 2 separate bearings. But it's rough as rough can be. I am sure, if I was a betting man, I don't bet much, but I'm sure that's all dried grease in there, and it's almost like a ratchet. It's clicking in increments of, yeah, so. Okay, I'm going to try drilling with that bit through this metal shield, and I'll bring it back after if I can get through it without breaking the bit. Well, it wasn't so hard. It didn't break the bit, and I managed to get a little tiny hole through. So I did the other side. I'm not going to tell you what the results are. But you guys just saw what happened. I had it coming out way over here and way over here, so that's pretty good. I'm going to clean that up and see what we got. So just spinning that bearing after that little bit of grease has made a big difference. It's a bit smoother. I think the other side, this side here, is just as smooth as if it's a brand new bearing. So we'll let it soak overnight. I think I'll inject some more grease tomorrow, and I think those bearings are going to be ready to go now. But because there's a hole there now, I think the grease can come out, but and also dirt can go in. So I'm not sure if I should seal that hole or just leave it like that, but something I have to think about. But I definitely got a way to get grease in there now. The results on this side are not near as good as the other side, but the other side is it's kind of protected from the air and everything. It's kind of sealed in there, and this one here is exposed to everything. So maybe this one was a little more dried out. I'll try putting a little more grease in, and we'll check it tomorrow morning. What I think what that grease has to do is soften up the old grease. And then that's what I'm feeling right now. I'm feeling that roughness of the old chunks of grease. Here it is. Here's the WF Wells model A-7. And I've pulled the serial number off the saw, and I told the lady over the phone. She said right away, 70 to 1970. They made these from 1964 to 72. They still make one very similar. It's got a few more guards, a few more safety devices on it, but it's almost identical. And it's over $5,000, so not that I would go out and pay that kind of money for one of these, but it's got everything in here, pages and pages of how to set that thing up. And she just sent me a PDF file, and I downloaded it, printed it off, and I've got copies of everything. And somewhere in here it shows all the bearings I've got. I'll sift through and try and find it. Okay, so we got bearings all over the place here. There's a big long sleeve bearing here, which I haven't got to. The bearing on the main wheels that drive the blade, I've got them over on the workbench. There's another bearing in there. I don't know if these are double bearings, even this one. I think it's 2 bearings pressed in, one, stacked one on top of the other. Over here as well, 2 more, same, I think it's the same part number. Yeah, 1204, 901204, and it shows, it should should give you a number of how many there are. Doesn't really matter. My plan, these things are really, really rough, and I think they're full of dried grease. And 45-year-old saw. I'm a little worried about these and these bearings in here. They're probably the same, in desperate need of new grease. Thanks for watching.